We can't have someone in the Oval Office who doesn't understand the meaning of the word confidential or classified.
Thank you for joining us today on Retraction. I'm Jamie, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Antoine. Say hello, Antoine.
YOLO.
YOLO. All right, folks, our topic today, Retraction Podcast 2023 survey results on Trump's legal woes and what that could mean for his future sentencing. Now, everyone, we've surveyed you guys, our audience, 20 times throughout last year, 2023, on various topics. And you can see them all in our episode description on YouTube. But for this episode, we've honed in on the ones that followed Trump's legal troubles, including his role in trying to overturn the 2020 presidential election and his handling of classified documents. In those surveys, we asked you, our audience, what your thoughts would have been ahead of the actual events. And now we can see if you were right. And maybe, Antoine, our audience's forecasting could be a predictor of how right they will be going forward in the future with the final survey question that we'll end on. Now, let's start by reminding everyone of how bad Trump's handling of classified documents was. Does everyone remember the raid?
The documents that list it shows that the agents in search of Mar-a-Lago were investigating potential violations of at least 3 separate statutes. That is according to a statute under the Espionage Act. The unsealed property receipt also shows that federal agents removed 11 sets of classified documents, including some that were labeled top secret. Also on the list, information about the president of France, a grant of clemency for Roger Stone, and binders of photos.
So, this raid went down in August, but nearly 8 months earlier, in January 2023, we surveyed our audience to see who handled classified documents worse, Biden or Trump. But before we get into that, Antoine, do you remember this photo? Right? For those that can't see it, it's boxes of classified documents on the bathroom floor at Mar-a-Lago. Now, do you remember this?
It was a nice bathroom. I remember it being a nice bathroom. I remember it being, typical Trumpian gaudishness. I do remember that. And I do remember feeling quite out of place just having these plain old boxes. I'm surprised you didn't have the staff sort of gussing them up a little bit, like drawing them, put, what do you call it, gold. What is that, gold paper? I'd at least assume the gold leaf. Gold leaf, yeah. I would at least assume that he would have asked them to put gold leaf paper around the outside, just so that it sort of fit in with the decor of the bathroom. And the thing that's really interesting is that everything is quite ornate, with the exception of that window. Do you notice that? Like, you could see also, even the doorknob.
Look at the shower rod.
The shower rod still has gold rings, I think. But
it's a shower rod. It's a tension shower rod.
Well, what you say that a man of Trump's stature wouldn't have a tension shower rod? How else would he do it? You think it would be built in?
I think it could be a door.
A door? Oh, a door to a shower? No, I don't. I mean, he's the same guy that did Burger King, right? For that team that won and brought them in. I mean, the guy has, what is it? It's like
he's got a chandelier with a tension shower rod.
That's correct. It's so Trump, though. It's just like him. This is what he does. It's
I mean, that's
on one hand he's got the high and mighty, and the other hand he's got the the lowly low. That's just what he does. That's how he does.
And that window, that's a basement window, right? I mean,
that's what I was going to ask you. I was like, it's not as ornate as the mirror at least appears to be. And then he's got the Kleenex box, which again doesn't have at least some sort of gold leaf coating to it. So it's a little disappointing. The bathroom was a little disappointing, aside from the tons of documents that are left in here. But this might not be a used bathroom on the regular. I do hope he actually does use it, though. And I do hope there's fecal matter all over those boxes.
Right. All right. So now back to the survey, right? 93% of our audience thought that Trump handled his declassified documents worse than Biden, and I would say that they nailed it. For one, upon discovery, Biden returned his documents. No one needed to raid him, and it wasn't as nearly as many documents as they found on Trump. So I remember that was a big GOP talking point. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
My only thought is that it's sad that we didn't see where he was keeping that document. I do somehow, I do, because they are both old men, and I do feel that they are sort of this. They're on the same coin. I feel like they're one is a head on one side with a head and the tails on the other. And I in my heart of hearts, I want to believe that while it may have only been 2 boxes, 1 box, I too believe it was in his bathroom. I do believe it was next to the toilet. In fact, I think he was putting his feet up on it. And I'm saying it's a shame we don't have that picture, because I wish he was rated so you could have that picture to compare.
Wouldn't it be hilarious if it was something along the lines of like Biden was using it as like an ottoman or something? Like it wasn't just something that was stored, but he was actively using it, and then he didn't realize what it was.
I believe that. I completely believe it. That's my point. It might not have been in a bathroom, but it might have been in his bedroom, which was like with a bathroom adjacent. So my point is, it's a shame we don't have the pictures to compare.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Now, Antoine, do you remember this?
Nicole and Louis, this was a short proceeding. Trump now has an inmate number after he was arrested for a 4th time earlier today. Former President Donald Trump arrested Thursday. This mugshot taken at the Fulton County Jail, indicted by a grand jury for alleged efforts to overturn the 2020 election in Georgia.
What has taken place here is a travesty of justice. We did nothing wrong. I did nothing wrong.
The former commander-in-chief was released under a $200,000 bond agreement that includes a condition that he will not intimidate witnesses on social media. And it comes as he shakes up his legal team, tapping well-known Atlanta defense attorney Steve Sato to defend him, facing 13 felony charges, including violating the RICO Act, engaging in a conspiracy to replace public officials with fake electors, and plotting to tamper with voting machines.
We have every right, every single right, to challenge an election that we think is dishonest.
Trump is one of 19 co-defendants, including his former chief of staff, Mark Meadows, who surrendered hours before him. As on Wednesday, Sidney Powell, Jenna Ellis, and Rudy Giuliani turned themselves in.
So in that video, right, we saw that Trump was indicted and surrendered into custody 4 times in 2023. 4 different times this man surrendered, and he had a mugshot taken, and he was given an inmate number when they booked him on felony charges in connection with attempting to overturn the 2020 presidential election results in Georgia, and was released on $200,000 bail. Now, 5 months earlier, in March of the same year, 53% of our audience predicted that Trump would have been arrested. And so they were right again. Thoughts?
My only thought is, did this man watch Zoolander before he was arrested? Did you notice? I mean, between the mugshot, which just reminds you of like that scene where he's, the blue steel scene. I think here's the thing: you could see that mugshot in 2 ways.
He practiced that mugshot, right?
That's exactly what I'm trying to get at. Exactly. Not only did he practice it, but I feel like you could see it in 2 ways. I feel like if you're a supporter of his, you see it as like a show of strength, and if you're not a supporter of his, you see it as some sort of weird, like,
it's such a pout. It's like a weird scowl pout.
Yeah, like I'm sad and I'm in a corner as like a toddler kind of thing. Yeah, but the walk. Did you see the walk in the video? I wish you could read. Well, the walk in the video was. It was like it was like a walk off. Who walks like that? It was like he was walking intentionally in slow motion. Did you notice that?
I don't think I noticed the walk, but now I'm gonna have to go back and watch.
Dude, you have to go back and watch that, because it was like, I was like, are they slowing this down, or is he actually slowing down how he is walking? And I believe that man was slowing down how he was walking. It is what it is. Believe him. I mean, he is just he's not a human being. He's like a caricature of what a human being should be like. But
I think he's doing it. I think he's trying to be what he thinks a human being should be. It's like
absolutely
he sees these things and he tries to internalize them because he thinks they may be cool, and then with very little criticism from anyone that may be able to help him, he kind of just does what he does, and it comes off as what you say.
Yeah.
All right. So Trump was arrested upon surrendering into custody. 77% of you guys out there thought Trump wouldn't be handcuffed, and you were right. He was not. But since he did surrender, our audience did get it wrong when they said that 63% of you thought that Trump would not turn himself in, and he in fact did turn himself in. He turned himself in 4 times. So also related to this,
And when you see these thugs being thrown into the back of a paddy wagon, you just see them thrown in, rough. I said, please don't be too nice. Like when you guys put somebody in the car and you're protecting their head, you know, the way you put their hand over. Like, don't hit their head and they've just killed somebody, don't hit their head. I said, you can take the hand away, okay?
Now, 77% of our audience respondents thought that the police should take the hand away when putting Trump in the back seat, but we never got to see that twist of irony because he turned himself in.
To save himself the embarrassment, clearly, because he knows what he asked everyone to do. So, you know, it would only, and he, you know, in his mind, people listened to him. So, you know, he did. That's probably why he turned himself in. So he didn't have to hit his head on the car door on the way in.
That's right.
Yeah.
I mean, I was actually looking forward to seeing that. I really wanted to see what would happen, but we got robbed. All right. So now during all of this, the GOP was desperate to change the narrative. They have their front runner turning himself in 4 times. He's on so many criminal charges and civil charges I can't even count. And they were desperate to get a W and to just change the perception and mindset of people. So they did what they could with their new House majority.
It is with the highest amount of solemnity that I announce my intention to introduce articles of impeachment today on the head of this America at Last executive branch that has been working since January 20th, 2021 to systematically destroy this country. The President of the United States, Joseph Robinette Biden. Joe Biden has deliberately compromised our national security by refusing to enforce immigration laws and secure our border, allowed approximately 6 million illegals from over 170 countries to invade our country, deprived Border Patrol of the necessary resources and policies sufficient to protect our country. And his administration has willfully refused to maintain operational control as required by the law. His policies, directives, and statements surrounding the southern border have violated our laws and destroyed our country. Biden has blatantly violated his constitutional duty, and he is a direct threat to our national security. Therefore, Joseph Robinette Biden is unfit to serve as the President of the United States and must be impeached.
Now, Antoine, you're making a face there. What are your thoughts?
Solemnity.
I know.
It's a new word. It's a new word.
You saw that. You heard that, right? This is the first
I
thing.
thought it was. I thought she missed. I thought she missed. I thought it was a misstep. I thought she meant either solidarity, something of that effect. I didn't really. This is like I guess it's a very biblical word, which I guess tracks with that ilk. Yeah. So solemnity.
Dog whistle.
Basically, I mean, you don't use. I mean, it's all his ashes were laid to rest with great solemnity. The ritual of the church was observed in all its solemnities. Interesting. It's just such an interesting word to use. Yeah.
I'm sure it was on purpose.
A solemnity is a feast day of the highest rank celebrating a mystery of faith, such as the Trinity, an event in life of Jesus, his mother Mary, his earthly father Joseph, or another important saint. So yeah.
Cool.
Just let you know how pious they are.
Yes. All right. Any other thoughts on the GOP's distraction efforts here? Or
no, that's it. That's really it. Because
Yeah.
I think you're good. Because I think you're just going to get tripped up on solemnity, and you're just going to spend your time looking that up, as I was, while the rest of the conversation kept going. And I think that's what happened to most people who are not biblically charged. I think that everyone else stopped, wasn't listening, and was like, "What did she?" Because they wanted to just make fun of her, and you realize that no, it's some sort of weird pious dog whistle. So it is what it is.
Cool. All right. So 72% of our audience thinks that the GOP's effort to impeach Biden is a distraction from Trump's prosecution, and 56% of our audience thinks Biden's impeachment inquiry is illegitimate. I mean, it is an interesting thing where they promised to do this before they even knew what the impeachment charge would be. They just wanted to do it, clearly because Trump was impeached. I guess my thoughts on this are clearly right now everything is pretty tribal politically in Washington. this could set a precedent of a tit for tat. Not to say that that precedent hadn't been set, but I think that, impeaching presidents is another level. Do you think that this is a precedent that will be legitimate, or will it be a precedent that people will discard and not reference in the future? Or do you think that this way of going about impeaching someone and it not being, no one was impeached until Trump sacked the Capitol, until he, stoked an insurrection. So this did not rise to that occasion. If even what she's saying is true, that he didn't secure our border on purpose or whatever it may have been, didn't fund our border patrol people. As if the border wasn't in crisis before him. But my concern is this shallow argument, but very low threshold for what you would think impeachment has to rise to? Do you think this is going to hold going forward?
I think that, aren't you forgetting? Here's the thing: it's going to hold as long as no one wants to govern. That's really where this sticks in. It's as if everyone decides that there is no point in governing because every position you take will either be looked at as unfavorable and is not something that was going to win you points to your next election, then impeaching the president is going to become the norm. Now, the thing is, you said that no one, I could have sworn, did they try to impeach Obama like a number of times once the GOP took over Congress in his second term? Don't you remember that? Didn't that happen?
I don't know. That's not.
Give me a second.
Yeah.
You hear some of them. All right. Sue him. Impeach him. Really? Really? For what? You're going to sue me for doing my job? Okay. Think about that. You're going to use taxpayer money to sue me for doing my job while you don't do your job.
During Obama's tenure as president, according to Wikipedia, from 2009 to 2017, certain Republican members of the Congress, as well as Democratic Congressman Dennis Kucinich, stated that Obama had engaged in impeachable activity and that he might face attempts to remove him from office. Closest attempt to impeach Obama occurred on December 3rd, 2013. House Judiciary Committee, controlled by Republicans, held a hearing on whether or not to impeach the president. At the hearing, there were views among Republicans that the president had not done his duty while simultaneously abusing his executive power.
But they didn't do it.
No, I didn't. No one's actually no. But there were calls. There were calls for impeachment. I'm just saying
that's fine. There was also the crazy Tea Party, crazy racist movement. Didn't they have they were doing burnings and stuff, like effigies and everything. That was a weird time. I think that was the start of probably what we're seeing now. But in general, I think discourse has been a little more civil, where you're not just throwing around that term so loosely. Right. I don't know. And I guess my point, and maybe to your point there, it started with something, calls for impeachment. And even if you skip over Trump, now, Biden doesn't secure the southern border in the way that they're presenting it. Is that an impeachable offense? I don't know. And what does that mean? Is it going to continue to devolve, or is it going to somehow fix itself? Just that threshold. Is it every time a party disagrees with the sitting president, they're just going to call for articles of impeachment? Is that how it's
going? I do believe so. Yeah. It depends on, I think it's not, it's a frustrating situation, right? Because instead of just waiting out a term and saying, hey, we'll win the next election, it's well, we know it's not likely for us to win. So we're going to use, political gamesmanship in order to remove the elected person from office. And I think that's it. Do I think that we're going to see more and more of this as the years go on? Absolutely. Especially as one party gets increasingly less popular in terms of the majority of Americans. It's like the minorities last gasp at trying to control a narrative. And I think that's really where you're going to continue to see it. So are you going to see it from the Democrats? Because fortunately or unfortunately, it is what it is. But the majority of Americans are more in that camp. So are you going to see it from them? Probably not, because you don't need the majority to remove a minority leadership. But I think that when you're in the minority, and you do not have the Democratic votes to control, then yeah, you're probably going to be using whatever games you can play in order to remove someone you disagree with, because you know that you can't get them out via votes.
That's really depressing, but I can't say you're wrong. It's definitely trending towards that. I just hope it doesn't continue to escalate in that way. But
yeah, we could hope,
we'll
but
see.
you have to decide, well, not you have to decide. It's the people of America have to decide whether you're going to, even if you disagree, whether you're going to basically allow some sort of usurp. It's a weird place to be in, because it's sort of that you don't want to use those like harsh words of like you're teetering on tyranny. It's more of like,
but impeachment isn't a mechanism to get your way, and that's how it's being used.
That's exactly right. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, it's I'm just saying it's undemocratic when you use it that way, and I guess people have to say, is it worth it? So some people it is, because they feel like their will has been hijacked. They're not looking at the sense, they're not looking at the makeup of the country. They're saying my views are less and less in step with what the general voting principles happen to be, and but my views are more important than everyone else's, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes in order to have those views propped up as if they are the views of the majority. And yeah, unfortunately, that there's only one. That's kind of how Putin rules his country, right? I mean, there's only one outcome at the end of the day when a minority feels that their views are more important than the majority. I mean, there's only one in that eventuality to that kind of thinking, and that's what sucks. I mean, that's what's sad about it, and that's where the danger comes in. So, we'll see how this plays out, but that's just one of those things.
All right. Well said. Now, this brings us to recent events.
Another state is following Colorado's lead, declaring Donald Trump is ineligible to appear on the primary ballot.
Maine's top election official made the same decision unilaterally tonight. Colorado's highest court ruled last week that the former president is an insurrectionist and is therefore disqualified from the ballot. Maine's Democratic Secretary of State is citing the same part of the Constitution at the center of the Colorado case, which is now on its way to the Supreme Court.
Now, all this happened last month in December of 2023, but a couple months earlier in October 2023, 73% of our audience said that Trump should be barred from running. And they were right, according to courts in Colorado and Maine, even though they're being appealed. And I'm curious, do you agree with them, Antoine? Like, I know that feel like I'm not sure if you and I agree on this, so I'm kind of curious what your thoughts are.
The way I see it, if you're the like attorney general in these countries, it might as well be countries at this point. Right? I mean, honestly, every state might as well be its own country. I can see how you frame this in your mind. I can see yourself thinking, you know what, I'm going to be the safeguard of democracy. We cannot trust the people to make the right choice. We have to remove this man because he is a danger to the republic. And I'm going to put myself up, and I'm going to fall on my sword and martyr myself. And no matter what the political fallout might be, we are going to make sure that this man cannot actually be voted for. So I could see how someone could put themselves in that mindset.
Well, that's the main one, right? The main one was
either one.
The other one was the court, right?
Well, no. Well, it was like I think they were the Colorado. I think it was people suing. I think it was like civilians suing to say that he's not eligible, whatever that may be. And again, those civilians might be putting themselves in that situation where we are going to protect.
But there's this clause in the amendment that says if you participate in insurrection, you can't run for office. And,
correct. Yeah. It's the same thing with it's just like off of.
And other judges in other cases said he participated in insurrection. Like that was kind of agreed on.
That's so right. The highest court to those states, the highest court.
We went over
those states.
Was that private or was that on the?
It was private. It was not
private. Okay, yeah. Private. Or I just don't really understand. But so I don't know. It's I see how it's being framed that it's some like self-righteous activist judge or activist AG who is taking it upon themselves, as you just said, to safeguard democracy in the way that they see it should be. But is it that, or is it that Trump violated the Constitution and there's a safeguard for that, and this is what it looks like?
If every state falls in line and removes him from the ballot, then I'll say, yeah, absolutely.
Well,
But
that's why you would
there
say,
are-
yeah, as long as all this, that doesn't make sense, does it? I mean, you're saying that
Why?
the interpretation of the Constitution is for you whether or not all 50 states are on board with it or not.
Yeah, it has to be a unanimous decision. Yeah.
So
For
then
me.
so then you agree with Roe being overturned because that's just what the states did, and you don't think that you know what I mean? Like, that doesn't make sense.
Well,
right?
no, Roe was overturned because the Supreme Court, the highest court, overturned it. It's not.
But then a
like the
lot of states started kicking in and saying,
Yeah, the
like,
states are
that's
doing
right.
whatever they
They
want.
don't
Yeah.
have those rights. They don't have those rights. So does that mean that they don't have those rights?
No, because
Just because
federally.
states say so?
No, I said first of all, it's not unanimous either way. So I mean that's why I think those are two completely different scenarios.
Different things. And I'm not trying to put
No,
words
no,
in
I'm
your mouth.
just-
What I'm trying to understand is, why is state consensus dictate the interpretation of a pretty clear? I mean, we're so lucky it's as clear as it is, and not like the Second Amendment, even though
No,
the
I'm
Second
saying
Amendment's pretty clear.
I'm saying
But-
state consensus would rule. I'm saying you use the abortion argument, which is not there is no state consensus on that. All 50 states don't believe abortion should be legal. They don't believe abortion should be illegal. There's no state consensus, so it's not. It falls in the same realm of what I'm talking about here. If all 50 states need to assume to say that Trump is ineligible for office, that is the consensus I would abide by. The fact that there is no consensus makes me weary of the whole situation, because I always have to think of it as, well, what if this was the other side? What if the GOP were using this target here in order to make a Democrat ineligible for running?
I mean,
for
I'm not a
office?
Democrat, and if a Democrat sent a mob to the Capitol to disrupt the certification of an election and it turned into an insurrection, then yeah, that dude or girl can't run for president. I mean,
No,
or
I
hold
agree.
any
I mean,
office. Like,
and
I don't
that's
know what-
that's why we have laws. Exactly. That's why we
Yeah.
have a legal system. That's so what I'm saying is that needs to be a unit. That needs to be a federal decision. Like that
It is.
needs to
It's the
be unanimous.
Constitution, and it is going to the Supreme Court now. It is
And
going
exactly, this is where
to
when
the
if
Supreme
the
Court
Sup-
that he stacked. So we'll see what happens.
Well, I mean, here's the thing: we can't have it both ways. The thing is, if that's the kind of rhetoric that does bother me, because yes, do I believe the Supreme Court is stacked? Sure, but now you're delegitimizing a legitimate leg of our government. And the thing is, if we keep doing that, then where is the faith in the government? And if there is no faith in the government from either side, then it's like, well, then what happens to this republic? And so that's my point.
Yeah, but I
Yeah.
hear you there, but it's the lack. My problem with the Supreme Court is the lack of the checks and balances on it. We can't impose ethic reforms. We can't impose term limits. Like, who is?
Well, we can. We just don't.
We can, but we don't.
Right. We don't.
They have outsized. No, I want to say
They do.
outsized power.
I would
but
say
there
at this
is
point, yeah.
probably less oversight over them than anyone else, even the presidency.
Well, here's my question to you. When the Supreme Court says that yes, he should be on the ballot, right? It overturns these two states that have made him ineligible. What is it? Yeah, what is your stance at that point? Are you still going to say
Well,
he is an insurrectionist and should not be running?
Well, he is an insurrectionist, and the Supreme Court, I don't think, is going to weigh on whether or not he is. It's the argument is whether or not that applies to the president, which is absurd because there's no reason to believe it doesn't. If the Supreme Court comes back and says that he didn't have anything to do with the insurrection, I mean, and you're just saying, hey, don't say anything bad about them because now you're going to diminish a legitimate branch of our government. I don't know. Like, I saw what I saw on January 6th. We all saw it. And then we all saw all the evidence.
So what do you say? You're saying, so, I mean, here, you could give this to me because, I mean, I'm willing to be fallible on this because I haven't paid as close attention to it, mainly because I assumed that it was going to be irrelevant. And so I didn't want to bog my brain down with something that is just going to be another news cycle, just something that just happened but doesn't actually have consequence. You're saying that in Michigan, the argument was why they threw it out was because they said,
Maine or Colorado?
no, Michigan. I'm saying the one that didn't take this up.
Oh, okay.
Right. I believe it was Michigan. They're the ones who basically threw out the case before it got to their main court. Were they saying that he is an insurrectionist, but it just does not apply to the presidency, and so he is exempt?
Yeah, that's what I've just said.
That's what Michigan said.
Oh, I don't know if that's what Michigan said, but that is the arguments that I have heard from the GOP to counter various courts saying that no, he committed insurrection, but this doesn't apply to him. In fact, actually, some courts may have said that. Now that I say it out loud, so I don't know which ones. So I don't want to misspeak.
But all I'm getting at is, while I completely do believe he is an insurrectionist, what I believe as a citizen is irrelevant because it has to be what is pressed upon him via our government institutions. And if the Supreme Court is basically going to rule that he is an insurrectionist and yet it doesn't apply to the presidency, well, then I think Congress has their, either that or the states have their work cut out for them to fix that with regard to the Constitution. A constitutional amendment looks like something that would be on the horizon in the aftermath of this decision. It's unfortunate that I guess he just gets to run even though everyone is in agreement. All I'm saying is that the fact that every state isn't currently throwing him off the ballot, that's the issue. It's sort of like every state has to come to this. Otherwise, it does look like you're just picking winners and losers. It looks like you're picking, which is not good. It's not a good look for the democracy.
You're arguing. I think all right. So now you're like arguing the optics of it. Listen. If all the courts and everyone decide, they look at all the evidence that's proposed and they're like, you know what? Even though we heard what we heard, when you go by the letter of the law, it's not insurrection. Then that's just something that, we all have to just accept. But that's not the case. Judges are finding that he did that. There is a significant amount of evidence that we all saw with our own eyes. We all heard what he was saying. We all know the build up to that with him and all of his minions just stoking this stuff, using this explosive rhetoric that just kept amping up the tension. We know that several people have been found guilty. Hundreds of people are in prison now, I believe, for having been involved in this. So there was something that happened. This event wasn't a tourist event. It wasn't a peaceful protest or anything like that. It wasn't people just visiting a public building that they're allowed to go to. So I just don't really, if you're going to try and say that, the optics don't look good if only a few states do it, that still doesn't mean it still doesn't influence the truth. That's just optics. It's not the truth. And I don't know, maybe that's unpopular, but I don't really care about the optics. Because if the guy had one try, we don't really want to give bad people multiple tries to do bad things. And if the guy tried once and failed, I'm going to assume he learned who he's going to appoint, the things he's going to do, and I really don't want to give him another shot.
I'm just saying, it's as flawed as our system is. We still you can't. There are optics to say like, you don't want to use extremes. It's not a murderer. It's not. Look, this guy definitely was at the helm of
someone died that day, and then people died later on.
Yeah. Here's the thing. I'm not defending that. All I'm saying is that the government should work, and this man should be disbarred based on a consensus. But he broke
the
states.
law. No, but it's like saying this is what I'm hearing. This is what I'm hearing. Yes, Carl committed that heinous act. But Carl's an excellent mechanic, and I prefer him to work on my car. So Carl doesn't go to jail.
Yeah, if you're a state, you're saying some states are saying that. Yeah, sure.
No, I'm saying that you're saying that regardless of what he did, people want him, so he should just be able to do what they want him to do. But you're ignoring other victims that way. We're all victims of this insurrection, but because people
I'm saying that
because he's running for an office that is elected, then we should give everyone a fair shot to elect to vote for their person. You're saying we're depriving people of someone to vote for.
I'm not saying anything about we. We are not doing anything. I'm a private citizen.
No,
I'm not doing anything.
We're all part of this country. So I'm using we as the royal we, that we're all doing it. We're doing it to ourselves. We're punching ourselves in the face.
There are states who are deciding that this is not something that they have taken up. But so yeah, I guess in that we aspect, or here's the thing: if every state knocks him off the ballot and then he's just on the ballot in Michigan, that's still fine. That's still a consensus. That's still just like, all right, well, Michigan for some reason is the outlier, but that's still a consensus. The majority of the state. My point is, he can't win the presidency at that point because the majority of states have knocked him off the ballot. That's what I'm getting at. We need a threshold. We need to get to that point. It can't just be 2 states have knocked him off the ballot.
So let me get this
and
straight.
All the others are allowing him to
you
run.
As an individual, you as an individual are not going to say Trump's an insurrectionist, he should be banned until the majority of states do it. But until that point, you don't want to be. You don't want to throw your hat in the ring.
It's not a hat. My personal opinion is irrelevant because that we can't get into this kind of thing.
Everyone's personal. This whole show is based on personal opinion, isn't it? Like everyone gives their opinion, and opinions do matter because we do have elected officials who try and represent us.
My opinion is that I want the government to work. That's my opinion.
That's
my opinion.
I think that's implied, but the government isn't working right now.
And then it's like,
and you can't just ignore it. You can't just ignore it. You have to. There is a guy that is actively trying to subvert the government. In fact, he tried to overthrow it. And he's going to try again. And you can't just say, listen, let's just see what the states figure out to do. Let's just be quiet. Let's just be quiet about this until the states figure it out. Because you're right. Those people in Colorado, that was like, what, an activist group. Those were citizens who said enough is enough.
Okay. They're afraid. My point is everyone's afraid because they think that the majority of people are still going to vote for him regardless. And that's a bigger issue. So my point is you're just, even if everyone has this opinion and everyone's knocking him off everyone wants him to be off the ballots. My point is the only reason people are afraid is because despite being insurrectionists, they know there's enough people that still might put him in office.
No, they can't though. If he's not allowed to run, even if they write his name on a ballot.
Yeah, I know you're not listening. You're not. Yeah, that's my point. I know that. I'm saying that the reason that everyone is all up in arms about this is because they think there's too many people that are going to go out and vote for him. And I'm like, you're just kicking a can down the road. Basically, my point is your democracy is over at that point. That's what I'm getting at. Like that's why I'm nonplussed because what everyone is saying is they're saying the democracy is done. That's what I'm getting at. It's over. If there are that many people that are willing to say, yeah, this guy's an insurrectionist, I don't think there are. I mean, there are a lot for him anyway. That's what I'm saying. If that is the
I guess my question would be, I guess my question would be, are there that many people, or are they just gerrymandered to have an outsized voice?
In either case, you're still saying it's over, right? Because if you are gerrymandered in order to have an outsized,
I don't know if you're gerrymandered for the presidency.
Well, I'm just saying, yeah, no, you are gerrymandered. But my point is like, well, how do you get that? How do you fix all this? You can't. All you're doing is you're stalling the inevitable. You're basically saying we're going to knock this guy off, and we're just going to hope that that a guy like him never comes back.
No, I'm not hoping that. I'm not hoping that. My thing is
not you.
But my issue is this dude committed insurrection, right? He's an insurrectionist. He was part of the insurrection. There's a law against that. You're not allowed to do that. The next guy could come in, use all the same rhetoric Trump did, but if it doesn't lead to an insurrection, have at it, dude. Like, and if that person does commit insurrection again, then same goes for you. Like, I don't care if, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not trying to prevent another like a-hole from getting in there by doing this. This dude did something. You broke the law. You're held accountable
by the law. If you broke the law, you're held accountable by the law. That's what I'm waiting for. That's what I'm saying. That's my opinion.
The judges did that.
Two judges did that. Two judges did that.
Yeah, so it is what it is. But just because the other ones don't doesn't mean that you strong arming these other people into majority rule in that way. Like, no,
that's what it is. Because let's say the Supreme Court doesn't weigh in on this, then it means he still runs.
That is the Supreme Court weighing in on this if they don't, but they are. They're taking it.
Yeah, they're taking it, right? So and I think at that point, it's all hail the conqueror hero. If the Supreme Court says, this guy is ineligible to run, then that's everything working as intended, especially based on all the evidence that you're putting down.
All right.
And that's what I'm waiting for.
All
That's
right.
my opinion. My opinion is I wait for the decision.
Fair enough. All right. So this brings us to our last survey question to our audience. And to remind everyone watching what the tally is, our podcast listeners have been right 4 times and wrong once, right? All these questions were posed way before the event took place, and they all predicted 4 times the correct outcome, but not just that one. So they're doing pretty good, right? Pretty good at predicting what will happen. The final question was, if guilty, will Trump receive a prison sentence? Antoine, care to venture a guess of what our audience answered?
I want to think this is close, to be honest with you. I do want to say that this is a very close call. And I think that ultimately the decision was yes, because I do not think our audience is as jaded as I am. Because I would easily have been like, no. But I think that people are far more optimistic. And I feel like the answer was yes. But it's close.
66% of our audience think Trump will receive a prison sentence if found guilty. So, Antoine,
not as close as I thought. I thought it was gonna be a little closer, maybe like 62 to 48 kind of thing. But yeah, that's still that. Yeah, 66 is still, yeah. I knew it wasn't gonna be a blowout, but that's about right.
Well, I had 2 questions for you. One, you kind of answered. I was going to ask you, what do you think will happen? And you kind of said, no, you don't think he'll receive a prison sentence, even if guilty. But then let me ask you this, because I think we've had debates on this in the past. What do you think should happen
to Trump
if he's found guilty, where anyone else would have gotten a prison sentence? What do you think should happen to the president, a former president?
No, I mean, I think when we've had debates of this in the past, I think we were at a different place. We were not as far gone as we happen to be at this point. I think that you have to put him in prison because otherwise, I mean, I feel like you lose credibility by letting him not be imprisoned. I think it was very different when I was speaking before.
I don't think it was different at all. It's still, you break the law. We're all held accountable.
Yeah, I know. You view it.
All go, or we all get fined, or we all get probation, or we all go to prison. Whatever it's supposed to be is what you should get.
Yeah, I know.
Especially because he could go to, now he's older, but like a rich person could go to prison and come out and still be fine. It's not like they take all their money away when you go to prison. Whereas someone who isn't able to continue building their career or personal wealth is kind of out of luck.
Before the insurrection, I was of the mind, because I mean, if people go back, I mean, that's when these debates between us occurred. I was of the mind that simply pardoning, you could find a president guilty of certain acts. I can't remember what the discussion was before that, but putting them in prison, I did think that it served the nation and our standing in the world very well, but we're much further beyond that point. I think that in order to basically preserve our standing, whatever it might be at current, he would definitely have to go to jail, and it would have to be made it would have not fanfare, but it would have to be very severe to say, no one is above the law. And so I'm just saying, I'm more in line with you today than I was.
There you have it, folks. I'm not going to argue it anymore. I'm going to end on that note. There you have it.
Take the win.
So that is our 2023 survey wrap up. Like I said, we covered a few surveys there based on Trump's legal woes, but we had a ton of other surveys we put out there on all different types of topics, 20 in total. Check out our YouTube episode description if you want to see what our fans were saying.
And with that, Retraction out. Happy New Year, y'all. 2024, here we come.